All right. Well, listen, it is Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day to everyone out there. It is May 27th. We are the Boston Boys Sports Podcast. I am Eli Horrigan, your king of Carver. I am here with Steve Fernandez, the most agitating man on X. Steve, how's it going, bud?
Not too bad yourself.
I'm doing really well, actually. Again, I want to say happy Memorial Day and thank you for everyone who's given their lives so we have freedom in this great country. And I also wanted to mention, I said company, not in our company right now, is Kiefer Bontos, the best beer in the business. We're hoping he joins us sooner than later. We want to mention as well that we are partnered with Jones and for Sports. We make sports better. Check them out Twitter. Check them out on YouTube. Check them out on Instagram. We want to jump into the show today with our opening thoughts, and I'm going to lead us off today. My opening thought is about the Red Sox. Of course, it's the Red Sox. They are one game over 500, and my original prediction of 90 wins is still very much attainable. And this is what I want to talk about. When you break down the math of 90 wins into percentages, it's only a 55% win rate, which they can do. Okay, this is the equivalent of an NFL team winning 9 games, or an NHL team or an NBA team winning 45 games. Offensively, they're ranked 14th in batting average, 12th in OBP, 9th in slugging, and 9th in OPS. Pitching wise, they're third in ERA, 6th in opposing batting average, and 6th in OPS. Their problems are on defense. They lead the league in errors and have the worst fielding percentage. Naturally, those two things go hand in hand. The Red Sox are good, and they are a team worth investing your time in. Steve, how do you feel about the Red Sox?
I think investing is the most important word you just used because if ownership decides to invest in this team at the trade deadline and actually do something for them, 100% 90 is attainable. Without that, I'm not so sure. I think with the injuries and the errors, I think that's going to weigh on them. But if ownership does invest, I think they could definitely do it.
Well, I'll talk more about what I want them to invest in when we get to that portion of the show, but I do want to hear your opening thoughts as well. So what do you got for us today, Steve?
Just a simple one. Being on Twitter today and being everywhere else, you're seeing a lot of people trying to predict what the NBA Finals is going to go like by using the Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks already. And in my mind, I know it's 3-0. I know it's never been done, but it had never been done in baseball before '04. And if it didn't matter, they wouldn't play the game. 3-0 is where they would cut it. They would call it slaughter rule and it would end. There's still a series and a lot of things can happen. I mean, I don't want to say it, but injuries can happen. A lot of things can happen where it could affect how this goes and then how the finals go. So I just think it's too early to start predicting finals records.
It's definitely too early. I know why people go there because it's 3-0. It's never been done before in the NBA. It has been done across sports. Obviously, we are firsthand witnesses to that. But
Good and bad.
Good and bad. Unfortunately, the loser Bruins, who I have continued to give them the Scarlet L, they are just our regular losers that people don't want to admit to, I guess, but they are the 3-0 Philly, I believe, right? The Flyers.
Yeah.
10 years ago, 15 years ago, however long it was. In my mind, I'm still 21. So, but back to the Celtics, you saying that it's not a foregone conclusion that they win this. I'm with you because the Pacers are good. I'm seeing so much Pacer hate. Oh, they didn't play. Brunson got hurt. They had a cakewalk all the way to this point. Listen, they can be up 2-1 in this series. If Rick Carlisle, like we talked about before, if he's not blowing, if they foul at the end of that game instead of letting Jaylen Brown take a 3, and he calls proper timeouts, or they don't foul, or they could be up very easily 2-1 in this series. And then you're talking about the Celtics. Everyone's probably talking, is it time to really separate Brown and Tatum? Instead, we're up 3-0 after a 114-111 win, in which I told you, what did I say to you in text message? Keep the faith. They're going to come back. They're a second half team. It was I'll tell you, it's my luckiest call ever because at that point in the game, I'm watching it and I'm just like, this is so stupid. Like, how do they do this every series? They come out super flat, but I guess maybe I willed them into a win there.
Yeah, it's the mindset where I was and why you were questioning being optimistic was based on the play. It wasn't based on the score. The score is the score. If you're being outplayed some nights, that just happens. That's life. But when you're watching the Celtics beat themselves, whether it's bombing threes when they don't have it, whether it's no movement on offense, or playing bad defense, which they were definitely guilty of, then that's when it bothers you. If you're just getting beat, if you're playing good, solid basketball and you're just losing, that's completely fine. But not the way it was going. But I love the comeback because that showed. Everybody's always questioning, well, cakewalk. Are they going to be able to do it when there's pressure, when it's tough, and that was a gritty win. And I loved every second of that game.
It really was. And a lot, right behind me, my guy here, Jrue Holiday, has been so fantastic this series. And I feel like he's your leader. Like when it comes to the defensive end of the floor, you can put him on anyone. And sometimes he looks outmatched down low. Like I've seen him on Siakam at times and I'm like, why are they doing this? And Siakam, he's going to beat him down low on the block every single time. But the guy is willing to play defense against whoever. He obviously, we know, scored the most at all in a Celtics uniform for himself personally in the first game. He had 28 points. It was 28, correct?
Yeah.
And then I think it was 15 points in game 2, 14 points in game 3. He's rebounding so well for a guard. He's playing fantastic defense. He is everything you could ask for. He's the unsung hero of this series for me. And Tatum's been fantastic. Tatum's scoring. He's played really well. Jaylen Brown's scoring. Al Horford is Jekyll and Hyde. You don't know. One night he's 3 for 12, and then the next night he's 7 for 12 from 3. So we never know what we're getting from Al. Their bench has been awful. Hey, welcome in, Kiefer. What's up, guy?
There he is.
What's up, boys?
Nothing. What's going on? But we just started. We're talking Celtics right now. Do you have an open take for everybody out there?
Yeah, Celtics about to win in 4 after that game the other night.
Completely comes in and contradicts Steve. Steve's opening take was that too many people think the Celtics are going to win 4-0.
Well, you would think about it. What happened that game? What happened that game was kind of insane.
Yes,
100%.
Absolutely. Yeah, it completely insane. What were they down? What were they down going into the fourth?
18 at one point, right?
18.
Tatum had a game. Brown didn't look bad. He did look bad at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, he ended up scoring 24, which is huge.
Which was huge, but a lot of it came in the third and the fourth, right?
I couldn't tell you his exact breakdown, but I do know he looked bad early on. Like he just looked like he didn't have it. The whole team looked like they didn't have it at points. And that's what Steve was just speaking to is the resilience. What you saw from them afterwards is what you should feel real positive about that game.
Oh yeah, and Holiday ended up coming on too. It looked great. It did look great from what they did, and they showed up, and they came back, and they won, and they came. That's a big thing right there. Everything else, we can't be down that much going into the fourth quarter. You just can't be.
No, and it's something that you can't do it often either. And if and when it happens, and they go to the NBA championship. And let's in a world of pretend that Steve doesn't want to live in, because his opening take was, let's not get ahead of ourselves. If it ends up being Mavericks Celtics, you can't do that with the Mavericks because Luka and Kyrie have looked fantastic scoring the ball. You can't get down by 18. You might be able, and the Pacers are good. And that's what I want. I don't want to harp on the Pacers, but obviously to me, the Pacers are just very young. They're not ready for this moment, but they're good. Luka just scores, man. He scores. You can't do that to Dallas.
No. Well, Luka, I don't know. I read a stat this morning. In his first however many games, he's got more points, rebounds, assists, a better shooting percentage, a better 3-point percentage than LeBron did in his first however many seasons in the league.
Yeah.
And now you've got him playing with Kyrie, who is the playoff. I mean, he's proven that he can be a playoff caliber player.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the greats, really.
You know those Mad Lib things that they do with the jokes, and they see them talking, but it's not really them talking.
Yeah.
Kyrie was sitting here was like, I'm there. I've won games by myself in the playoffs with LeBron. This dude right here is better than LeBron. He's like he's a white Larry Bird or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So,
Luka
scares me. Luka scares me.
Yeah.
And he should, but there is one thing that he does not rank well in. Steve, what is that?
Defense.
Where did he rank this year? Because there's a narrative spun around right now. Steve's been in multiple battles on X because people are telling him that the Luka defense is an old narrative and it's not true anymore. Steve, and for everyone listening, where did Luka rank defensively this year?
167th.
Woo.
So this is not a lazy narrative. This is not an old narrative. This is the real deal. Luka doesn't play defense, and he doesn't want to play defense. And it's proven over an 82-game season or however many games he played. That's where you're going to expose him. If these two are the matchup, who does Luka defend?
You can't put him on Tatum.
You can't put him on Tatum or Brown. Does he end up on Holiday?
It's got to be Holiday or White. It has to be. Holiday, White, Kyrie, and Luka.
You think? I don't think they put him on. I don't know if they put him on Holiday though.
I think you have to because Holiday. If Porzingis is back, right? Holiday is your fifth option offensively.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
fourth or fifth.
I see him more covering Derek White. That's just my opinion on that. That's just what I think. I don't know if I could see anything else happen that any other direction because it's a really tough scenario with this.
I think.
Well, let me ask you a question. Who's a worse defender, Kyrie or Luka? Because Kyrie's not known to be a defender either. So now you got to go with, all right, White. It's going to be White Holiday. Well, which one's the worst defender? Because they're both bad.
And White, at least to me, out of the two of them, and Drew's my unsung hero of this series. But White's the guy who has the ability to hit shots and get hot. Like I don't worry about Drew taking 10 threes, but White will.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're the Mavericks, you have to put it's the lesser of the two bad defenders on Derek White, which is why I think Luka goes to Holiday because Holiday to me is their fifth option. Number one is Tatum or Brown. Number two is Tatum or Brown, depending on what the game plan is. Then it's Porzingis, and then it's your two guards.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, you could look at it that way. You could look at it also. I mean, Luka's longer, right? So you might want Luka on the shooter. Or then you could look at it, who runs around more? Derek Wright runs around more, and Kyrie is he's a cardio freak. So maybe you match it up that way as well. I mean, there's a few. You want Luka running the least amount that he can run, right, on the defensive end. So maybe you'd have to look at it that way and say it's Drew because he's older and doesn't move around as much.
Yeah.
No, Kyrie. This whole matchup.
It's tough.
It's a matchup nightmare. It's a matchup nightmare for these teams. Sorry, boys. I got a daughter that's freaking out right now.
That's all right. Don't
get
worry.
It.
Sounded like me during the first three quarters.
Oh, it sounded like me. It sounded like me. I was so mad at that game the other day.
Yeah. But I will say this because I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because obviously it can't happen. We've seen it happen, like we said. The bench for the Celtics is awful, and this is one of the things that I talked about way back when. I think in our first podcast that we were talking, where it was around the trade deadline. And I said, they're probably not going to do anything because you've seen their bench. Hauser had been pretty good. Cornette been okay. We'd seen a lot from Pritchard and Horford. But this is what happens when you do nothing at the trade deadline. Their bench has been bad, and that's one of the reasons you really need Porzingis back going forward. He's not playing tonight, and I'm fine with that. But you need a guy like Horford coming off the bench because right now they're getting nothing from that bench.
No, the bench also plays better when Porzingis plays.
Yeah, I think everyone does, honestly. The
No,
offense,
without a doubt, the guy changes the factor of the team for them, and it's been like that since the beginning of the year when people were skeptical. Oh, Porzingis can't make it. Yeah, he was injured some of the season, not a lot. He wasn't as bad as others. He's on, and he can play.
yeah, I mean, I agree. But one thing we did talk about too before you jumped on, Kiefer, was how good the Pacers have been, and we don't want to count them out because they could very easily be up 2-1 in this series if not for some mistakes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you some statistics that I jotted down because I thought it was pretty impressive. The Pacers as a team, they shot 50% in game 3, 52% in game 2, 53% in game 1. They dominated the Celtics in the paint in game 3, 68-40. They out-rebounded the Celtics 43-36. They out-assisted the Celtics 32-24. This to me just feels like old school 80s, 90s NBA. The Lakers and the Celtics dominated. And then the Pistons, it was finally their turn. And then it was finally the Bulls' turn. And then it was finally the Rockets' turn when Mike left. And then the Bulls dominated again. This feels like a really good Pacers team that people are just sleeping on. And they're like, oh, it's the Pacers. They had an easy run. They're not that good. The Celtics are going to squash them. The Celtics haven't squashed them. The Pacers are legit. And if they keep Siakam, I don't know what his contract is like because I didn't look into it. I don't know if they have to re-sign him or if they have him for a while. This is a good team.
Siakam before he got traded, he signed a contract with Toronto.
Okay, so he is signed. He's in Indy for the foreseeable future.
For the foreseeable future. I don't know if it's only one more year or 2 years, but I think when he signed with Toronto, I think it was 2 years ago, it was for a 4-year contract because he would have been one of their max players, which leaves that they have at least Indiana to have him at least one more year after this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and Halliburton and Halliburton wasn't even in the other game, and we were getting smoked. So when is
he's questionable
for tonight?
He's questionable for tonight's game.
Okay.
So I would assume game time decision, and this feels like a theme against everyone the Celtics are playing too. It's like they always expect, is the guy gonna in game 4? None of these guys are coming back to play. It was Donovan Mitchell, Jimmy Butler went down, and now it's Halliburton. It is. I don't want to say it's an easy run because I just went on a rant that it's not easy and that Indy's good. But when you look at it on paper, it's like, I mean, you got the Heat without Butler, you got the Cavs, for part of the time without Mitchell. Now you're going to have the Pacers potentially missing Halliburton, their star for 2 games. It has really been set up for them to win, and they need to win tonight as far as I'm concerned.
It's easier than it could have been.
Yes.
I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's easier than it could have been. I mean, they also lost Porzingis, and to be honest with you, the Jimmy Butler one is the one that I feel the least bad for. Maybe if he played a couple more games in the regular season and kept Miami out of the play-in for once, maybe they wouldn't have had. He got injured in a play-in game that wasn't necessary. Yeah. Maybe if they won a little more during the regular season and he didn't sit out so many games, they would have been just fine. So, whatever with that one. But sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
I mean, yeah.
Well, this is the whole load management thing, right? That we just talked about. There was a story I saw recently. It's why LeBron James is not he's in my top 5 greatest players ever, and if people want to put him at number 1, that's them. But he's number 4 for me for a reason. And one of the stories that I just saw was Steph Curry talking about playing against Kobe in the preseason, and Kobe's picking him up at full court defense. Kobe's playing full court defense in the preseason. LeBron's taking, game 7 off in the regular season for load management. They're 2 different animals here. You're not on that level.
Kobe was a whole different breed, though. He was the close, and people gotta hate me for this. He's the closest thing you'll ever see to Jordan.
That's right.
From
100%.
You won't get hate here from me on that, but I've had an epiphany for me. It's Jordan 1. I think it's Shaq 2 for me. It's Kobe 3 for me.
Oh, Shaq was the most dominant big man I'm only 35, but biggest dominant big man I've ever seen play the game of basketball.
Yeah, and he is, and Kobe's the closest thing to Jordan, obviously, because Shaq is not Jordan. I'm watching like old Shaq highlights, and I'm like, dude, he just bodied every, like you couldn't stop him. You could throw 3 guys down low. I heard him tell a story, and this is what kind of changed my mind, because I always just thought Shaq was a big body down low who could just dominate everyone. And he's telling a story about how the first offensive possession, he always wanted the ball first on the block. And he said, because I wanted to know where help defense was coming from, who I could pass it to first, and what they were going to do. And if they didn't send help defense, I knew it was a long night because nobody could guard me. And it just told me how smart he was basketball-wise. He wanted the ball first to see where the help defense was going to come from all game. He was dissecting defenses as a big man. And that made me, I was like, all right, he was more than just this big body who could beat anyone physically. He's smart, too. And that's a dangerous player.
Oh, he knows basketball.
Well, yeah, no question. I will say this. Remember, Kobe always said that if Shaq ever tried as hard as Kobe did, Shaq would be the greatest player of all time.
Yeah.
So that always made me question Shaq and his passion for the game, which isn't fair because I have no idea. But in the beginning of what you just said, Eli, you said something really important. You said Kobe is the closest thing to Jordan. So there's a comp. There's no comp for Shaq.
No, there isn't.
You can't give me Wilt Chamberlain was like Shaq. Like that's not the case.
No.
There isn't a comp for Shaq, but you have a comp for the other ones. So I could see putting Shaq at 2. I don't. Kobe is my number 2. Yeah. I'm not changing that, but I could see the argument.
Kobe's 1 and 2 for me. Shaq would be 3. Yeah. And I like that because you look at everything in the game. Shaq, what was it? In the first 2 of the three-peat, in the first 2 series of the three-peat in the finals, he averaged it was like 36 and like 14 and 36 and 16 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
He couldn't be stopped. He literally couldn't. And then he had Kobe to give the ball to when he was getting stopped, but you didn't see him get stopped ever, so it didn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just that team, they're never talked about as one of the greats all time because it's Shaq and Kobe, and then you had like Rick Fox was on one of those, like Robert Horry, Derek Fisher, they had Lamar Odom, like team wise. But like if you put Shaq and Kobe on a team up against any great team, there's not many teams I think that could beat them. They were really just dominant. Oh, yeah. And you have Phil Jackson coaching, who's the greatest coach in NBA history. So I mean. But we don't want to dive too deep. We don't want to, if we could do another podcast on the Lakers someday. But what do you guys think for tonight? Do you think they finish it tonight, or do you think the King of Carver has predicted a gentleman's sweep again? Do you think it goes to 5?
Well, I said the other game. I said game. What was it? Game 3. I said they were going to win by 8, right? Where'd they end up winning by?
3. In game 3, they won 114 to 111.
Yep. So. I'm going to say they win by 6 tonight.
So you think a sweep now? Because previously, I think we have it on record. You said Celtics in 6. Stevie, I know Stevie is.
I had 7.
I don't doubt that you did. We lost Kiefer for a second there. I believe Kiefer had them in 6.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that same way.
Kiefer, I have them in 5. I do remember saying that I predicted the Celtics to win in 5, but after the heartbreaker of game 1, I could 100%, I wouldn't be surprised if the Pacers were swept because that's a heartbreaker. However, they haven't given up, so I'm really impressed by the Pacers. I do think they're good. I
think they gave their best game 3. I think it's going to be a sweep. So I have to go from the Celtics in 7 to a sweep is what I'm calling now. So.
Which never
it is what it is.
I fully expected you to come on here and say Celtics in 7 still. I think you guys are right too. I would love for the Pacers to win tonight so the Celtics can win in 5 because there's nothing on the planet I like more than being right. Ask my wife, ask any of my friends, including you. there's nothing that I like quite like being right. But I do want this series over, and I really want the Timberwolves to have some fight. Because I want Porzingis to be healthy for the finals. And if the bench is going to be as bad as they are, these guys their legs need a little bit of a rest. I don't want it to go on too long, but I start worrying about Drew Holiday's legs. He's such a good defender. He's also an old by NBA standards. He's going to need some time to let's get these guys some practices and running that way, but nothing as intense as the NBA postseason, because this has been a really good postseason too. It's one of the first postseasons I remember in a long time where I really felt like, boy, there's a lot of teams who could win.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, take the injuries out of it, of course, because that's been kind of bad. But
yeah,
to your other point,
and,
100. What's that?
I said, and unfortunate. Like, you never want to see it.
Yeah, 100%. But to the other point with trying to get it done, yeah, I mean, Al Horford, we've seen he had the one breakout game. He's been okay. He's hit a couple shots, but he looks tired. And the way that he's being targeted on the defensive end is almost embarrassing at this point.
Yeah.
So to have the ability to play less, get him 15, he's not playing 30, 28, whatever it is, things like that. I mean, he's the one that I point at the most. Obviously, want Porzingis back, but getting Horford that time of anybody else, he's 37.
Yeah,
that would be huge.
And I'll say this about Horford too, because he had another great game where he scored 23. He went 7 for 12. My buddy's like, if you're gonna bet Horford to hit 4 threes, and I was like, dude, first of all, I'm not betting, because every time I won a little bit of money when FanDuel first started, and then it's like they duped me. It's almost like FanDuel was built for me to lose money. And they wrote me in. I'm not kidding either. Like, I was up about $1,000, and I took all the money out. Me and my wife, went out in Boston, and it was like, I was like, I'll keep $50 in there, and that 50 went like that, and then I put another 50 in it, that one like that, and it went like that for about. It took me about 7 times to learn. So what's that? $350 for me to be like, all right, I just don't gamble. They roped me in, and now it's like I don't touch it. And I said, and if I am going to gamble, I will not gamble on Al Horford making points. It's not happening. And of course, I wish I did, because then he went 7 for 12. At one point, I'm watching the game, and it's like he hit what? He hit another. I'm like, I wish I took that bet, because it looks like all of a sudden he's young Al again. This has got to be his last run in the title, right? I mean, I can't imagine he comes back again.
I keep hearing things about, you want to get Al his before he retires, get him it has to be. It absolutely has to be. He has to be so drained at this point that he's already thinking about it for sure, especially if they win it. Great way to go out.
If they win, I would say there's 100% chance he retires. If they lose, I say it's 50-50. Like, I could see him saying, I don't know if I have another season in me, and then coming back and saying, listen, I want to come back as like a player coach. I want to log 10 minutes a night because this team's good enough to win. Like, because as long as they don't throw up on themselves, they should be in the finals. So he has a legitimate shot at a ring. As long as they make it to the finals, if they lost in the finals, I could see him saying, listen, I can come back. I don't want to be an integral part of the team. I'm a guy on the end of the bench. This team's good enough to get over the hump. But I really do think this is his last ride here. This is the Go ahead. I don't want to step on you.
Yeah, no, I think you're probably right. He could, let's be honest. We saw Blake Griffin play last year, right?
Yeah.
He could play that Blake Griffin spot on the bench from last year, 10th or 11th. You know how it goes. They could do it. If they wanted to, contract-wise, they could figure it out.
Right. And the other thing they could do, too, is say stay in shape, and it's P.J. Brown all over again. We'll call you around the trade deadline, So stay in shape, keep working out, but, take the next 7 months off with your family, and we'll call you next February. I know that that math doesn't add up, for anyone who wants to, but you know what I'm saying. So I do want, what do you think they do win tonight? You think it's a big win? Do you think it's close? What do you think?
I think it's big enough where there's no concern at the end. I think they're just I think game 3, like I said, was Indiana has been really good. Don't get me wrong. Obviously they played a really good series, but I think they know it's over. This Rick Carlisle, all the stuff that he's saying about, he basically gave the Belichick conversation about the parade route. saying, oh, they're talking about how they're going to celebrate in our building. The league's talking about the plans. He came out talking about stuff like that today. Like he's doing his best. He's pulling out all the the last tricks.
Yeah.
I don't think any of it's going to work.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Too, it's one of those old sports adages. I think in any sport, like if you listen to any talking head, which we are now as well, do Indiana really want to win one more to travel out to Boston to lose to travel back? Like they've put up a valiant effort. They're good. The Celtics should dominate them tonight. If they don't win by more than 15 tonight, I would be shocked. Like I think it could just be a complete, especially if Halliburton doesn't play too. Like they gave it everything in game 3. And I agree with you. So we talked a little bit about Al Horford and maybe exiting Boston. So I'm going to use that to transition to the Bruins, because I teased this in our last little show, and I want to get your opinion here. Jim Montgomery, do you fire him or do you not fire him? It's been a little over a week now, 10 days maybe, since we've seen the Bruins play. It's obviously the NHL playoffs are still going on. I think the Rangers up 2-1, or is it tied 1-1?
I think they won last night. I think it's 2-1.
They did win, so 2-1. What do you do about Jim Montgomery now that the kind of the loss is settled and the Bruins are in the offseason? Are you keeping Montgomery?
I am.
Okay.
I am for one more season, with the understanding that the Bruins, the front office, I think they're sitting at like $22 million in salary cap space coming into this offseason. I mean, they've been tied there as long as I've been alive to the salary cap. This is the first season that I remember them being okay. As long as the front office, because I think Don Sweeney, I think that's more of a question mark right now. I think the inability to make moves. I give Jim Montgomery a new team. I give him what we do in the offseason, and I give him the opportunity to take it from there. At this point, that's what I would do.
All right, so I've really gone back and forth, and you know this because I talked about it during the podcast too. And it's like I look at his record as a Bruins coach, and he's 1-12, 32-20, which is a fantastic record. And then I just keep thinking about that series with Florida, and they're not shooting. And his offensive strategy is quality, not quantity. And it drives me mad. And then I look at his career postseason record, and he's 9-11. He's won one series against the Maple Leafs in 7 games. And they should have been better. And I even picked them in 7 because I'm like, I don't think they're that good. I've gone back and forth in this. I'm firing them. And I could be wrong. I wanted Michigan to fire Jim Harbaugh years ago, and he won a national championship. And you know as well as anyone, I love Michigan. And now Harbaugh will forever be in my good graces. I am quick on the trigger. I am a prisoner of the moment. And I can't get that first Florida series when they're the greatest team of all time points-wise, and they lose. And now, again, they lose to Florida. They're tied to the salary cap. But the year before, when they had the greatest run ever, you talk about Don Sweeney. Don Sweeney did everything to put that team in position to win. He's traded almost like first-round picks for the foreseeable future. I think they have one this year, but it was like every other staggered. Sweeney's done what he can to help this team win as far as bringing in players. I know they have 20. I think it was like 21.9. I think is the hard number. I don't know. The NHL offseason is funny with unrestricted free agents and restricted free agents and having to give up picks. So I know you can't make bids on certain guys. There are guys out there that I think I won't be mad if they bring Montgomery back, but if it were me, if I'm the GM, I would fire him. And ask me who I'm replacing him with. I don't know. That will come later. One thing that I do like that Montgomery did is he sat Allmark. And I'm hoping that opens Allmark's eyes to be like, okay, I know I have this. I think it's a 15-team no trade list. I'm hoping he expands that and says, I just want to play, so trade me to whoever.
Yeah, I that's part of what I hold against Don Sweeney is DeBrusque and not trading Olmark. You could have found something, and you didn't. I mean, so you basically held on to a guy that played one game in the playoffs, was completely useless in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that's part of my Sweeney thing. No, like I said, I would give him one more season. I would give him the opportunity with the moves that we make in the offseason. Olmark would be gone. DeBrusque isn't a question. And with that, I would move forward. I'd give him. I mean, he's shown, it's really tough because it's almost like the Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy wins 12 games every single year, but can do nothing in the playoffs. So I guess, I mean, in that sense, it kind of sounds silly, but yeah, I would give him one more turn.
So now, do you have any? So they have salary cap, obviously. So this is the first time we've both seen them really have salary cap. Have you taken a look at all at some of the people who are out there?
I haven't taken a good look, but it's funny that you asked that because I saw them tied to Patrick Kane.
I do, but he wasn't on my list. I wrote down 4 guys that I would go after. 2 of them are centers. And I believe they're both unrestricted free agents. One of them's Elias Lindholm. The other one is Matt Duchene. So center was a huge point of contention for them. Lindholm, he'll be 30 in December. He had 15 goals, 29 assists, 44 points with Calgary and Vancouver combined. And then Duchene, he's 33, 25 goals, 40 assists. He had a 65-point season with Dallas. So those are 2 guys who I would actively go after. I don't know that you can get both of them, but they need such help at the center position. Those are, to me, like 2 of the better centers out there that you could go get. And then I also had 2 defensive players, and one is, I'll butcher his name, was Shane Gostavier. He's 31 years old, 10 goals, 46 assists. He had 56 points with Detroit. And the other guy, I've liked him for years and years and years, and Bruins fans will probably hate me, but Ekman Larsson. I really like Oliver Ekman Larsson. I think he's a big body. He'll be 33, 9 goals, 23 assists, 32 points with Florida. There's 2 guys on the blue line I think that can help.
Yeah, I like all 4 of those names. I think they would obviously, the center position especially, for me, I mean, it's been an issue for a while. So that would be huge, and especially with losing Bergeron, et cetera. But yeah, I like all 4 of those names. I mean, if you have to pick one and one, however you would break it down, but great names.
Yeah, and I mean, the only guy I'm re-signing right now, I think Swayman's a restricted free agent. I'm giving him the bag, and I'm getting rid of Allmark. He's got a 15-team no-trade list. If you don't want to open it up to 30, I give me whoever the best option is out of those 15. Whoever nets me the most return is who I'm going for. I don't know what they can trade. I don't know what his value is right now. I don't know if he's devalued because they didn't play him in the playoffs, but he's 2 years removed from a Vezina, and he was good last year. So I still think he's got a lot of value for a team that maybe thinks they're on the cusp.
Yeah, 100%. You have teams every single year that are looking, obviously, for a goalie. But, I mean, he is that good that he could be a goalie on a title-winning team, just not this one. You have the other guy. You don't have to pay 2 goalies.
Yeah. Do you care if he goes to East or West? Or, do you have a preference?
No, I don't. That's usually not a concern. I'm more concerned with what you get back in return because you don't know what that guy's future is going to hold. But if I can get something back in return, I'm not going to – I'm going to go to the Weston because I'm afraid of him. No, I would just take the best thing you can. Yeah,
okay. I mean, I guess preferential, I would want him to go to the West, but I'm with you. Even if the best return is the Rangers, I'm giving him to the Rangers. That's fine. I mean, if you have to go through the Rangers, it doesn't matter who it is, if it's him or the next guy. So you got to score and you got to shoot the score. That's my real concern. So that's kind of all I wanted to do on the Bruins. I just wanted to kind of ask you how you felt about Montgomery because, like I said, I've been hemming and hawing about this decision, and it was like I'd go with, all right, well, they scored 109 points, but it was a season where they reset the cap. Okay, they made it. I even said it was a successful season. So, but it's like at the end of the day, I hate the offensive mindset of let's just look for good shots. To me, it's hockey. just put the puck on the net with tips and garbage goals and rebound opportunities. I just want to see that puck go on net, and then we'll see what we can do from there.
Yep, I agree 100%.
So I know the Patriots is a big point of contention, so I don't want to go into the Patriots right now. We're going to spend a little bit of time here on the Red Sox as well, because we have a whole summer to talk Red Sox and nothing else. 5-5 in their last 10, which is a common theme. Like I said, they just have to win at a 55% rate, so they're not doing that right now. But this is the common theme. They dropped 2 or 3 to Milwaukee, and they're outscored 21-13 in those games. The pitching kind of looks pedestrian in these games. Do you have any Red Sox thoughts just to start with?
I mean, you could go with they are who we thought they were. No, I think a lot of the injuries are catching up. I think the bad defense is catching up. I think later on as the season goes, it becomes more apparent who they actually are. I hope they're good. And
great.
Yeah, I hope ownership, like we said in the beginning, invests in this team, gives them an opportunity. I mean, all the statistics, all the standings that you put out earlier, where they stand pitching wise and everything else.
Yeah.
They're too good to not try. I mean, we've seen this recently where they're on the cusp. They're kind of right there. Ownership does nothing for them at the trade deadline. The players say, well, if ownership isn't going to do anything for us, why should we go out there and kill ourselves? And the season goes down. We've seen it in, the last few years. So, yeah, ownership, just do something.
So this is my plea to ownership, because I'm glad you brought that up, because with you had pointed it out to me actually through text message the last few days. We've seen it coming out that they don't plan to re-sign Kenley Jansen. So yeah. I think you were of the mindset, then trade him. If you're not going to re-sign him, trade him and get something for him, which it's like, it sucks, because to me, that tells me at the same time, if you're giving up on your closer who hasn't been bad, he hasn't been great, but he hasn't been bad. What are you telling the whole team? You're in third place right now. We have a series with Baltimore coming up in Baltimore, who they're in second. You're chasing them. I want to say we're like 8.5 behind them. You sweep them, you're 5.5 out, and I know that's the 5.5 out of second. So it might be even closer. Here's my plea to the Red Sox ownership. I know it's not going to happen, so don't come over here and rain on my parade. Tristan Casas goes on the 60-day IL. There's no better time to start making phone calls to the New York Mets. Pete Alonso is a guy who it's early in the season, but Steve Cohen, the Mets owner, already said he does not anticipate them having a deal before the end of this season. They signed him to 1 year's $20 million. They could not come. I think they offered him like 5 at 170 or something along those lines. They offered him money. He said no. It seems to me that that player and that team are ready to have a divorce. Why not call them and say, what's it going to take? You're going to be missing your first baseman for the next 2 months. And I know it's a long season, and 2 months from now is July. So it's post All-Star break. He's coming back at the end of July, maybe early August. What does it take to get Pete Alonso here? And why? You're a big market. Go get Pete Alonso so he can bat against the monster. I would have to look at his stats. I don't know what his stats are, but I do know what he can do. He's a power hitter, a right-handed power hitter hitting first baseman, which is what you want at Fenway.
Yep, it makes too much sense, and that's why I don't think it'll happen. They should. Right. And not to say, I mean, what do I know? Maybe they did make the call and they were turned down. Maybe it's possible, I guess. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer to at least pick up the phone and, like you said, ask what is it going to take and how are we going to do this? To the Kenley Jansen thing, I just wanted to say, my biggest thing is you move him. If you have an option at closer, and I don't know who they would consider, I would move Kenley because I feel like you could get something decent in return for him, and I would want to do it before an injury pops up. Before something happens and you're not able to move him, I'd want to get, he's an asset. It's business. It sounds terrible, but he's an asset. Yeah, I just want to move him before anything like that could pop up, and then you would lose the opportunity to get something in return.
Yeah. So I just quickly, while you were talking to, looked it up. Pete Alonso, he's batting 230, which he's not an average guy. His career is 249, but he's got 12 home runs and he's got 26 RBIs. Like, you're telling me you can't use that in your lineup with O'Neill, Devers, and Pete Alonso? You actually have a decent middle of the order right there. Like, if you call them, and I'm with you, I don't want to overshadow the Kenley Jansen stuff because I will get back to it, but if you call them and they say, yeah, it's going to cost you Rafaela, Wilyer Abreu, blah, 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 and you say, okay, so now I'm trading two of my young, talented, actual big leaguers for one player, I'm not doing it. But if they want minor leaguers because they're rebuilding, because they're the Mets, because they're always rebuilding, they always spend money on aging superstars. I don't think they'll do it because I think they're cheap. I think they're looking at Pete Alonso like, man, he wants too much money. So, no, we don't want him. We have Tristan Casas, which Pete Alonso, if you're not going to DH Devers, Pete Alonso is the perfect guy to put in the DH spot once Casas comes back. I'm still not sold. I don't think Yoshida's a bad player, but if it took Yoshida and players to get Pete Alonso, or if it took Yoshida to get another closer, I'm not tied to Yoshida like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be either. I'm not a huge fan of Yoshida. And a lot goes behind that durability, question marks in the future, whatever.
Can I just interject? He gets hurt a lot, and he plays DH. He's a DH who has 2 home runs this year. I want my DH. Right. David Ortiz is my DH. That's my measuring stick for a DH in Boston. I want a guy who absolutely crushes the ball. Yoshida bats. It's not. He doesn't even bat 300. He's batting 275.
Yeah, exactly, and that's 100%. No, Alonso. The only thing, like, if for them to sit there and say he's going to want too much money, it's so that kind of goes to, well, do they? I think they wouldn't do it for the simple fact that they don't think they're good enough to win this year. So why bring in a rental? And I think that's how they would view it. They're not going to bring Pete Alonso in here and extend him. Like that's not, the Trevor Story thing was enough for them. They're out of that game, I think, for the foreseeable future. So the only reason they bring Alonso in. Oh, I agree 100%. But I think if trying to think in the way that I believe they are thinking, which is assuming I understand, but
yeah,
my basic thought on their thinking would be, well, we're not good enough to win this year, so we're not bringing in a rental because there's no way we could extend this guy. We're not going to give him $30 million a year. So what's the point? Which is
it's such bad business. It's frustrating as a fan. And I know this is me and you's opinion. So technically I'm getting the team in trouble for something they haven't done, but you're telling me that this guy's not a good investment. He's 30 years old. These are his numbers in seasons he's played. I took out the COVID year, 53 home runs, 120 RBIs. Okay. 37 and 94, 41, 31, 46, 118. The guy is he's a power hitting machine. And you're going to put him at Fenway where he could absolutely rake at the monster. And their idea is like, we don't want to pay him. This isn't Trevor Story, who gets hurt and plays one of the most difficult positions, maybe after center field, is shortstop. This is it's such bad business if that's their mindset, because he 100% could help them right now.
Oh, without a doubt. I think it would be amazing. I would love that move. Obviously, depending on what they gave back. But
yeah,
and as Red Sox fans, we can't get our hopes up.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, to look at your team and say, like, this isn't a team that can win. You're a game over 500. You are in third place, and all you have to do is win at a 55% rate to get to 90 wins. So you can make the playoffs this year. I mean, when you look at the MLB standings, they're not that far off of being a team who's like, I actually think they're in, obviously super early, but they're in the race. I mean, you're in third place in the East. Minnesota's got 28 wins. Kansas City's got 34, and the Rangers have 25. Seattle's leading out west with 28. So you're actually really in the hunt to make the playoffs. And if you make the playoffs, anything can happen.
Yep, I agree. And think about it. You get the playoff gate. You get the money from the playoffs if you're an owner. More games at Fenway, right?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you try to take advantage of that?
This just feels like a perfect marriage, and they're absolutely missing on it.
Yep.
So
agree.
I mean, that's all. We'll move on to the Patriots unless you have any more Red Sox takes.
No, like you said, we have the whole summer. This is a long season, so we'll have a lot to talk about when it comes to that team.
Yeah, and I do want to say before we move on to the Patriots, if they go get Pete Alonso, I'm taking full credit.
You should.
You know, because I haven't heard it anywhere. It's just for me watching. I can see what's happening. Like, they're the Mets. They should call them the miserable Mets, because that's what they are. They're just every year the off season. And I think Cohen's an actual like fan too, and he wants to be good. And they'll be like, oh, let's give Verlander $40 million a year. The guy's 39 with a bum elbow. You know what I mean? Like, this is just it's Mets are about ticket sales, not wins. So Pete Alonso, if he's in Boston, everyone can thank me for it, because I'm going to be pushing this narrative for, I'll say the next 3 months before whenever the trade deadline is, that's when I'll be there. So let's move into the Patriots, because there's a lot we want to get to, including people who really like Drake May's footwork. Apparently, not us, but others. What do you have to say to the people who think Drake May looks good?
I don't see how they see it. Not to be mean, like, hey, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but the truth of the matter is, he looks bad. If you've seen football and understand the footwork, and he's got little ticks, it's real. So within arguments, you try to have a normal discussion and understand. And one of the things that I usually explain to people is, well, there's professional scouts, there's professional, team, the front office, and everybody sees this. Everybody in college sees this. Reporters see it. The people who do this for a living see it. How do you believe that you know more than all of those people? Like, if my opinion matches the people who do it for a living, I usually feel pretty good about it.
Yes.
I feel like I have a leg to stand on. And you sit there and you talk to these people, and they're like, no, his footwork is perfect. You don't know what you're talking about. Well, that seems strange, because, Ted from Wichita knows a lot more than everybody else and all these scouts and professionals that do it for a living. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, never mind the fact that, so Gerard Mayo was already on record saying he needs to do a lot of work. But the other thing that I think is funny, because people who want to fight on this and say, no, it's fine, it looks good, I'm watching it, it looks good. Everything you hear from the coach, right, and the coaching staff and Elliot Wolf, is he's a hard worker, right? He's a hard worker is one thing I hear about him all the time. He's the first guy in the film room, and you'll walk by that film room and no one's there, and he's watching film. He's really working hard. He's studying the playbook. They're telling you everything about his mind, but they avoid talking about his footwork. Yes, he's studying really hard. He's watching film. He's working hard at it. That doesn't mean it looks good. You can like the work ethic. I love the Patriots, and I want Drake May to be good. And I love hearing that he has a good work ethic. But they're purposely not talking about his footwork. They're talking about what he's good at. They're not talking about what he's not good at, because that's not good business.
Nope. And, there's somebody else that we heard had such a good work ethic, was there all the time, was there early, was the last guy to the building. That guy's name was Mac Jones.
Yeah.
Most professional athletes, professional athletes work hard and do this stuff. And being there early and doing it earlier than anybody else doesn't translate to your body. That's not fixing the things that we're actually concerned with. The kid is smart. The kid does work hard. The kid, he's watching tape and trying to dissect up defenses and all that stuff. That is amazing. Yeah. But that doesn't fix its feet. And that's the issue. I
mean, take it straight from Gerard Mayo's mouth, because I just did a quick Google for anybody. I don't claim to be the smartest person on the planet, but just Google Gerard Mayo, Drake May, just the two names. And the first story is from May 12th, which is 12 days ago. And the title is Patriots head coach Gerard Mayo gives first impressions on Drake May after minicamp. Quarterback has a lot to work on. This is coming from the head coach. This isn't us making it up. He has a lot to work on. That's NFL.com. This is a pretty reputable site. They represent the league you're going to watch this year. This has nothing to do with our opinions in disliking him for any personal reasons. I don't know the kid. I want him to be good. I'm the person on this podcast, the Boston Boys, we're minus Kiefer right now, who says start him. I want him in week 1. I want to see what he can do in his first year, because I got into an argument with a guy the other day who's telling me he could see the Patriots winning 8 or 9 games. And I'm like, you're out of your mind. Whatever drugs you're on, please give them to me, because they are not a good team. I said, he's like, well, you know what their biggest problem was last year? I said, everything was football was their biggest problem last year. Like, if they had a list of problems, it was football. They had great golf games, which made sense for last year. They don't block. He's like, they're going to run a lot. And I know Kiefer said this too. So, and he's going to probably watch this. I wish he was here to say they're going to have this power run game. Where? They're not going to have it. You're relying on Kevin Harris coming back from an injury, who was a backup running back. Ramondre Stevenson, who had 600 yards last year, almost 700 yards, or the rookie that Kiefer had mentioned. You're basing this on what? Cole Strange is not playing now. I mean, he's out for half a season. I think the Cole Strange era is coming to an end. I would arguably say that is one of the worst first-round picks in my time as a Patriots fan.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one 100%. I am not with you with the Drake May Stardom situation, because I don't think he's good. So therefore, if I don't think he's good, I want him to take some time behind somebody else and learn, as opposed to trying to work under fire, trying to learn under fire, and trying to fix his footwork issues under fire. So that's where I fall on that side of it. Yeah, to the Cole Strange thing, yeah, that's we talked about it when it happened. It was we hated it then, we hate it now. My one question back to the Drake May thing is, for all of the people that argue that he's gonna be great, it was a great draft pick, and you love him, what do you think the motivation is for us not to like him? As Patriots fans, what is our motivation to dislike him? That's what I'm always curious about.
I don't have a motivation to dislike him.
We can't.
I want.
How could we possibly?
I want him to be good. Listen, give me the quarterback of the future. I want to be in the Texans' position with C.J. Stroud and saying, wow, we knocked it out of the park. We got C.J. Stroud. I just don't think they did. Everything we hear about Drake May is that he needs a lot of work. Why would you pick a guy at number 3 who needs this much work? I've said it. I could say it till I'm blue in the face. Joe Alt's right there. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. is right there. These guys are NFL ready. We picked a guy at 3 who's not NFL ready. There's no difference. It's like picking Cole Strange in the first round, and you see McVay laughing at you saying, I guess I wasted time thinking he was going to be there at 100 when I'm drafting. Like, yep. Let someone else make that mistake. I want him to be good. I don't think he is.
I'm with you with that, and there isn't a motivation. We don't have a motivation to dislike him. We dislike him because of what we see, and that's my point. All of these people that argue with us that he's going to be great, and that they never have a. I want to know what they believe our motivation is. We're Patriots fans. We want him to be great. We wish he will be great. We wish he was great now. We wish he's starting game, like you said, and he ends up being C.J. Stroud, and where he's not Bryce Young. We wish for that, but I just want to know, what do you think our reasoning is for disliking? Because the reason we dislike him is because of what we see. We've watched tape. We've watched him play. We didn't like what we see. Then we took it to the fact that he played in the ACC, which is a horrific conference in college football. And then we look at everything else and the people who were drafted ahead of him. We look at all of those things to come to our conclusion, our opinion that we don't like him, which is okay for people to have differing opinions. Completely okay. So that's my thing. I just want to know, why do you think we dislike him? There's no reason for us to dislike him other than the reasons that I just gave you, which should be accepted.
Based on his game tape, based on what I'm hearing from, like you said, people who do this for a living. Is why, like, Drake May. So here's some interesting stats for you from his college career, which people say he was a good college quarterback. Do you know what his I don't expect you to know it offhand because I actually just looked it up. Do you know what his completion percentage was his last year in college?
I don't.
63.3, which is good enough to be 49th in the NCAA last year. Okay. Touchdowns. How many touchdowns did he throw last year? 24, which is good for 30th in college football. Like, this isn't made up stuff. These are, how many interceptions did he throw? I mean, I don't think he threw a lot of interceptions. It was 9. So, but I mean, even still, that was 34th. Like, this isn't a made up thing. Like, he wasn't that great in the ACC. There is hype. People pushed Trey Lance. We've talked about that. There's been all kinds of pushes for guys over the years. I just don't think when a guy is sitting for a year, if I'm a carpenter and you're my apprentice, I'm not saying to you, hey, why don't you watch me hammer in nails for a year and you really get the picture of it. I'm giving you a hammer and saying, put some nails into the wood here. You know, I don't need you to watch me. If his footwork is this bad that he has to sit for a year, then it was a fail as a pick. And if I'm wrong and if he's any good in a few years, I'll say I'm wrong. But I'm sorry. If he's not that good, not good enough to start on an NFL team, when most of the other rookies are starting, you shouldn't have picked him at 3.
I completely understand. And I just pulled up a tweet that I sent a while back. And it has to do, I mean, it works perfectly with the stats that you just put out. So in these games last season, those games were against Pitt, Syracuse, Miami, Georgia Tech, and Campbell. I don't know if you're very, highly aware of the college Campbell. It's football championship subdivisions, Coastal Athletic Association. That's where they play.
Yeah.
Drake May threw 14 touchdowns and 0 interceptions in those games. But against the more difficult competition, he threw 10 touchdowns and 9 picks, and only 2 of those games were against teams that finished in the top 25, being Clemson and North Carolina State. So even looking at the statistics and where he compiled them, I mean, he was playing against teams that he shouldn't be playing against, and that's what 14 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. With everything else against the quote unquote better competition.
Yeah,
that's how he looked, and that's not good.
I just in the history of the NFL as well, right? And this is completely offhand, so I'm sure we'll miss some. How many quarterbacks sat for a year to watch and then were great?
Well, Mahomes is an easy one. Aaron Rodgers, some of the greats, Tom Brady.
But let me stop you. Pat Mahomes got drafted to a team that went 12-4 and was in first in the AFC West the year before.
Oh,
Kansas
100%.
Kansas City traded up to get him because they believed in him. Excuse me. Aaron Rodgers fell, and then he sat behind Brett Favre, a Hall of Famer. Tom Brady was drafted without the anticipation. He was a luck. That was the biggest luck pick ever in the NFL. And he sat behind Drew Bledsoe, who I believe was a great quarterback. But that team stunk. Tom Brady's the anomaly in all of these guys. Excuse me, my throat's so dry. Who's some of the best? Who do you think are some of the best quarterbacks in the league right now?
Mahomes, obviously, but Josh Allen, who came in during his first season after a few games.
Played his first year.
Lamar Jackson.
He played his first year.
Played at the end of the first year.
Yep.
Burrow
played first year.
Yeah. I mean, but again, in some of those situations, you could argue the same exact thing that you just argued. Lamar Jackson went to a really good situation. Burrow is questionable. But, I mean, some of those could be argued in that way as well.
Okay. I mean, but the list of guys in the playoffs last year, Tua started, right? Tua started his first year. Jared Goff started his first year. Dak Prescott, he ended up starting because of an injury. 3rd-round pick, though. Wasn't a guy they went and got in the 1st round. Over the history of the NFL, how many guys sat for a year to learn footwork? This is the craziest thing to me. Like, I just can't get past it. Like, you played high school football, you played D1 college football, and you're a top 3 pick in the NFL draft, and you can't play because your footwork's bad. It's maddening to me.
I get it. I get where you're coming from. But one, I'd have to look at all those situations because I would I would venture a guess that maybe the Jared Goff Lions.
No, he went to LA.
Lions. That's LA. Sorry.
Yeah.
Might be the one that's closest to the train wreck that is New England right now. So that would be part of it. The second thing is, I agree with you, but it all circles back to they just shouldn't have drafted him. But my reasoning for him sitting is, if it is footwork that they're concerned with and it's that bad, then again, I do want him learning with the season off, as opposed to learning with. I mean, they have some good defenses they're playing this year. You're not gonna that could completely cause a regress as opposed to progression. That's the only reason I say it.
So that's where we just differ. I think he needs to learn game speed, and he needs to learn to get the ball out. And I think sitting on the sideline watching Jacoby Brissett, I said it last time. I hope I'm right on the number. I might bet on it. Jacoby Brissett take 107 sacks this year is not going to help Drake May at all. He's just going to see another guy getting killed. Is he going to be more or less timid? Like, unless there's a Jamar Chase in next year's draft that they believe, but I think that guy was Marvin Harrison Jr. That's what I think.
Do too.
I don't think there's I don't think there's another wide receiver coming out next year. Now, we don't know this. This is just my prediction. That's better than Marvin Harrison Jr. I just don't think he's out there. So I like what they did in this draft. They wanted a quarterback. They got a quarterback. They got a couple wide receivers. I am starting him, and I'm giving the keys to him, and you're going to learn on the fly. And bring him into the quarterback room and say, listen, you are going to have to be good. This is going to be your test. You're going to get to see game speed. You're going to be able to be the hero. Nobody's expecting a lot out of the Patriots. They went 4-13 last year for a reason. No one's expecting us to win. So there's no pressure on you right now. I think the pressure mounts all season that this kid is going to be. He was the third pick. You're sitting him for a year to let him see the game and learn the offense. And then you're going to say, go ahead. Now we just got another top 5 pick. People's mindsets are going to start thinking we're the Bengals all of a sudden. And I think I would just rather have them start this year when there's no pressure to be great.
Yeah. I mean, I don't agree. I obviously disagree. I just think it could set him back so much further. I could think it could just make it so much worse. Under pressure, trying to learn. I don't like it.
That's fine.
And he's young. He's young. If he was 24, I'd say this is ridiculous. But being as young as he is, being 21, I think that's another part of it as well.
Yeah. Well, let's. I do want to move on to a guy you've been talking about trading. And have you seen the Matt Judon stuff recently?
Just more not showing up and worried about contract?
No, quite the opposite, actually. Matt Judon saying he's not going to miss a paycheck. He'll be there. He posted the Wolf of Wall Street gif, I ain't effing leaving, in response to a trade idea. I think it was Bleacher Report, a trade idea that sent him back to Baltimore. Then he also said in a quote, we're not trying to rebuild. This isn't post-apocalypse. We just got a new coach. This was on the James White podcast, and he said, I'm out for a vendetta. I got stuff I want to get done in my career. Personally, I'm on all BS all year long. I'm about to turn the dial back. I don't think he's going anywhere, and he don't want to go anywhere. And I can see the pain it causes you.
Who knows what that is? Who knows if he's just saying it to say it? I mean, he's on a Patriots Players podcast, or ex-Patriot player, obviously. So who knows if it's just for the fans? He knows that he didn't play last year, so he's got to get back into the limelight. I don't know what that means. I'd love to know his career goals. I mean, if it's to win a title, he should want to leave, because that's not happening. If he thinks it's not a rebuild, he's crazy. And what's that vendetta going to be? He's going to get about 8 sacks in the first half of the season and sleep through the second half like he normally does. I mean, what is his plan?
I don't know, but what I do know is that I think you're going to see him in a Patriots uniform for however long, if he's healthy all year. I don't think he's going anywhere, and he did say he's not missing a paycheck. He'll be at practices and whatnot. So I don't think he's a guy they're going to move to get any capital for. So with all that being said, I know you are not a Marvel guy at all, but I assume you know what the multiverse is.
Yeah, I think so.
So the multiverse is it's an infinity number of different scenarios that could happen that are happening currently. In a multiverse, is there a multiverse out there where the Patriots can compete this year and potentially make the playoffs?
If the NFL shuts down and lets them play by themselves, or puts them in the ACC.
Well, listen, Drake May would be okay then.
Yes.
So a couple other things I want to talk about before we wrap this up. And, Joe Milton, Elliot Wolf said he was watching him throw is unbelievable. They say he has a cannon. Joe Milton's a guy I know that you liked, I liked, Kiefer liked as well. I really think that's a fantastic pick, and I actually think he could be an NFL star someday.
Really?
Yes, I do think he could be a star.
Okay. I think technically he has a lot of flaws. I think he's older too, so I think it's been a long time of him working on it. Oddly enough, if my closest career comp for him is Jacoby Brissett.
Okay. So then he could be a starter in the league.
I mean, if the situation arises where a team's 4-13, gets rid of the greatest coach of all time and has an owner who's going crazy, yeah, sure.
Well, the fact is, Jacoby
business-wise, I nothing personal, Mr. Kraft, but I'm just saying business-wise, with the way everything's going with the team, it's just a little crazy.
Well, so and then the last thing I want to touch on is Brissett is taking first team reps. Obviously, we knew that was going to happen. Zappe has been taking second team reps. May's taking third team reps, followed by Joe Milton. But when you actually break down the reps, Brissett took 14, May took 7, Zappe 5, Milton 4. Is Zappe on the way out?
I think so, 100%.
Now,
they know how bad this team is.
I was going to say, on the way out, or do you think practice squad?
I think they'll try practice squad, but I think they have enough respect for him that they'd want to see if he has an option anywhere else. I know practice squad still opens up that opportunity, but I think they give him the opportunity to say, hey, if you want to look around, if you have offers, I think that would be the way to handle it. Yeah. I think he's definitely on his way out. I mean, they wouldn't have used the pick on Milton, and I know it's later, but they know how bad this team is. They had to take a shot at with every pick. I believe they used that pick on him for a reason.
Yeah, and I like Zappe as a human being. He doesn't bug me. I just don't think he's good. I think he's just enough. He played college football. He's in the NFL. He's good. People often mistake the term like, oh, he stinks. He stinks on an NFL standard, not by regular normal humans. I do think you give him you tell him, hey, listen, you're going to be cut. Get your agent to fill out offers. And I think you could see him on a practice squad because they did it last year and nobody wanted him. So I don't think there's a market for Bailey.
I heard recently he had offers from other teams, but he wanted to stay here.
Really?
That was the rumor, yeah.
But the other part, if you're on a practice squad, anyone can take you.
Yeah, anybody can claim you. You
can't say no.
Right. No, because they cut him. They didn't practice squad him. They cut him. When he was cut in the offseason, he had offers and he said he wanted to work it out and stay here.
Oh, okay. So, but I do know that. So I know they cut him and then they brought him back, put him on the practice squad.
Yeah.
But you want to say, okay, so what you're saying is when he was a free agent, teams came to him and he said, no, I would rather be on the practice squad, because that would make sense. Why once he went to the practice squad, nobody was like, he don't want to play for us. Why do I want him? He's not a guy.
Right.
He's backup. You know what I mean? You're wasting money on a backup for a guy who doesn't want to be there.
Exactly.
All right. Well, listen, I don't have anything else for you today. Unfortunately, Kiefer had some stuff going on. He couldn't be with us for the whole day. He was with us for part of the show. Steve, anything you want to say before we wrap up?
No, just again, happy Memorial Day. Thank you for everybody who gave their lives for our freedom, and hope you have a good Monday, Eli.
Absolutely. Happy Memorial Day to you. Happy Memorial Day to all the fans out there. And I echo your sentiment. A big thank you to every fallen veteran. That's why we have Memorial Day. That's why we have freedom to do what we want in this country. And to all the families who've lost a veteran, my sincere condolences with you. And also thank you and your family for that sacrifice, because it allows me and Steve and Kiefer to do what we love, and that is to talk about sports. We are partnered with Jones and for Sports. We make sports better. Keep following us on X. Keep following us on YouTube. We love putting these out. We love talking to you guys. Thank you very much. Go Red Sox. Go Celtics tonight. Fire Montgomery and start Drake May. That's all I have for everyone out there. Steve, happy Memorial Day, man.
You as well, buddy.
Take it easy.
You too.